What's up everybody? Today we're going to be checking out the GoPro Hero 7 Black and its top 3 features. What's up? This is Matt with Sidearm Productions. Today we're going to be checking out the GoPro Hero 7 Black. I've been using this camera for a few months now. I figured out what I like about it, what I don't like about it. The top 3 features that I'm going to show you today is what I like about it and what I think we will use it for here at Sidearm Productions. But first, I actually want to start off by covering a couple things that I'm really surprised that a lot of the reviews that I've watched about it didn't really address this at all. Battery life is terrible. It just seems like maybe there's a lot going on with this camera, but you only get these tiny little, I think they're 1250 milliamp. Actually, this is an aftermarket one I got. This one's 1500 milliamp. Yeah, I think 1250 milliamp is what they come with, and it doesn't last at all. I mean, even the 1500 milliamp ones that last a little longer doesn't seem like enough. So again, battery life is pretty terrible. I came up with a solution for this, or I didn't come up with a solution, but I bought a solution. Refuel Action Pack. It's essentially a battery pack type of case that you snap onto the GoPro, and it adds 5000 milliamps. With this and an internal battery, it's just night and day. It's 6 times the juice, and it seems to last forever. So first thing out of the way there is battery life's terrible when you use it with this. I mean, granted, it does make it quite a bit kind of bulkier than just the GoPro itself, but it's still kind of like the size of a point-and-shoot camera, still a very manageable size, still balances on my gimbal fine, obviously goes on a tripod fine, and it's not heavy or anything like that, but addressing the battery life thing, this thing I found does a great job. Getting to those top 3 features. Again, this is what I think I would probably use the camera for after I got to use it for several months. So top 3 features. Number 3, and this kind of ties into other features of the camera, but I'm just going to generally say stabilization. The hyper smooth stabilization is for real. So I'll play you a couple clips right now. The hyper smooth stabilization is pretty crazy, and it's available on all resolutions up to 60 frames per second. You add that higher frame rate and slow it down and have that hyper smooth stabilization. It's pretty unreal how smooth this stuff can look. All of the footage I'm showing you is not on a gimbal. Some of it's on a stationary tripod, but it's all, I didn't do any of this footage with anything other than a little Joby Gorilla Pod. No gimbals, just a Joby Gorilla Pod as a handle. Now these couple of shots, I kind of tried to do this whole fly through a disc golf hole type of thing at different frame rates and so forth. And I actually had it suction cupped onto my Polaris Ranger. So this is not a walking shot. This is on my Ranger. However, the motor's running, it shakes a lot. I tried to do this with my GoPro Hero 2 and it was literally unusable. And now it looks super smooth. I don't know how it comes out this smooth, to be honest. It's shaking so much. This is the result from being on a motorized vehicle that's shaking a whole lot. So I'm really impressed with that. All right, so the next feature we're gonna talk about, what is the next feature? Number 2 is slow motion. It'll shoot 240 at 1080, it'll shoot 120 at 1080, and again, it'll shoot 4K at 60. The 4K at 60 will have the hyper smooth stabilization. The 1080 at 120 will have standard stabilization. And then the 240 at 1080, no stabilization. I foresee us using this as kind of a B cam in scenarios where we might want to get something at a higher frame rate. So slow motion frame rates, probably a lot of 120. 240 is pretty slow. There's some cool things you could use that for, but I feel like I'm going to be using the 120 at 1080 with some stabilization built into it all the time. And then finally getting to the number 1 feature that I think I'm going to use this camera for, time lapses. Now this is not just one setting of time lapse on the GoPro. There's several different settings, but there's really 3 that I think I'm going to use. That is the time warp feature, what everybody would have traditionally referred to as a hyperlapse. Now it doesn't really give you that hyperlapse feel because it's not using photos, it's using stabilized video. So this is kind of going back to the stabilization, the hyper smooth. So it's using that in-camera stabilization software to really smooth out these hyperlapses as you move. I found that the faster you move and the straighter you move, the better they look. I found that the warp video feature worked the best when you probably move just straight forward, and it gives you that hyperlapse look but without a whole lot of time passing. So you're not going to probably get a lot of like clouds moving, but if you're in a crowd, for example, you know, the people will be going by quickly and it gives you that weird effect that a hyperlapse gives you. Second time-lapse feature that I think I will use a good bit as well, which is the night time-lapse. Now, not that I would only use it for night, but the nice thing about it is it's essentially doing what I've seen other cameras do in aperture priority mode. But what it's doing is it's maintaining the other settings for you, and then it's changing the shutter speed so that it will expose properly. So you can actually, if it was dark enough, you could shoot stars on the automatic version of the night time-lapse mode. But the nice thing about it is as it goes into day, or even during the day, it will automatically change that shutter speed for you. So you can get these really long time lapses. If you're using the big battery thing, you could leave this for 7 hours, photo time lapses at 12 megapixels. So really long, day to night, night to day, and it will stay exposed appropriately. Only thing to keep in mind with those is, as the shutter speed changes, assuming you're on auto intervals, it's going to start taking photos really fast when it gets bright. You're going to notice your time-lapse slow down a lot. Now, the only limitation in this setting, in the night time-lapse setting, which I don't understand, is the minimum interval is 15 seconds, which is pretty long unless you're doing a long exposure. So I get it, it's for at night, so you either have auto or it starts at 15 seconds. Maybe that's because I'm using it wrong. I feel like I found a little secret with the GoPro night time-lapse mode that I can actually shoot at night going into day or day going into night. I would know, I could trust it just during the day, just to expose properly as the sunlight changed, as I shot a sunset, as I shot a sunrise, whatever it may be. It's going to work with this. Now, granted, this isn't kind of the fast and dirty version of things that I think most people would use a GoPro for. I've shot these time lapses in RAW, so it takes some editing. You've got to take your photos and put them in Lightroom or some program like that, and then edit those photos, and then you've got to take them and put them into some kind of video editing software like Premiere or whatever, just to compile them into a time lapse. So it takes a little bit of work to get to that point. Again, maybe not everybody's favorite feature, but at least good to know that you can shoot not only night, but you can shoot night to day or day to night, and you have a proper exposure throughout. So that is kind of the fast and dirty part of it. Set it on night mode, hit record, you're gonna have a bunch of usable stuff just by doing that. The number one feature that I believe I will use on the GoPro Hero 7 Black is time-lapse video. So I'll show you a couple of those right now. So the time-lapse video setting will take a series of photos and it will automatically compile them into a 4K or a 1080 video clip. So you don't have to do any of that editing like you would have to for the time-lapse photo feature, for example. If you know your interval and you know how long you need to record, you know how long you want your clip to be, and you do all the time-lapse math, time-lapse, yeah, you got to do a little math. The camera will do it for you. You just got to let it sit there long enough to get a clip that's as long as you want it to be. You set your interval, you hit record, that's it. It's going to do all the editing for you. No more Lightroom, no more Premiere needed. You've got your clip straight out of the camera. That's pretty much all I got for the GoPro Hero 7 Black. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments if you have any other tips or tricks or features that you like about the GoPro. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.